She didn't stop texting because she lost interest. She stopped because her feelings became dangerous to her. Right now, you are staring at a completely quiet phone, staring at her name in your inbox, and replaying every single past conversation in your head. You are picking apart every interaction, looking for the exact moment the shift happened, trying to figure out what you said wrong or where things went off the rails. Just a short while ago, the energy was unmistakable. She was laughing at your jokes, staying on the phone a little longer than she needed to, sending long replies, and showing a genuine, effortless warmth that made you feel like you were the only guy on her radar. Nothing about her behavior felt distant or calculated back then. In fact, every signal she gave off suggested she was leaning in and enjoying every second of it. But now, without any dramatic conflict, argument, or warning, the noise has completely stopped, and you are left facing an overwhelming wall of silence. This sudden wall of silence instantly triggers a massive wave of confusion because you are viewing the entire situation through a completely wrong lens. Most men operate under a very simple linear equation: communication equals attraction. You believe that if a woman feels a spark for you, she will naturally act on it in a clear, consistent, and direct way. You tell yourself that if she misses you, she will pick up her phone, tap out a message, and send it without hesitation. That is how straightforward, logical thinking works. But female psychology does not operate in a straight line. For a woman, attraction is never just a cold calculation of how much she likes your personality or enjoys your company. It is deeply tied to emotional safety and internal calibration. She isn't just asking herself if she feels a strong pull toward you. She is subconsciously asking herself if it is actually safe to express that pull. The moment her attraction for you crosses a certain threshold and moves past casual enjoyment, the stakes immediately skyrocket. The fun, low risk phase is over, and genuine emotional risk enters the picture. Meaning introduces the terrifying possibility of being misunderstood, coming across as overly enthusiastic, caring way more than you do, or getting hurt down the line. So instead of taking a step closer to you, she reflexively pauses. She pulls her hands back from the keyboard and lets the room go quiet. This sudden hesitation isn't a sign that she wants to push you away or discard the connection. It is a protective, instinctual defense mechanism designed to keep her from losing her footing. She isn't reacting to a sudden drop in her feelings. She is reacting to the sudden intensity of those feelings. What looks to you like a sudden, alarming drop in interest is actually her hitting the brakes to catch her breath, assess the landscape, and make sure she isn't driving headfirst into a situation where she loses her emotional control. To you, her silence feels like a cold, personal rejection. To her, that exact same silence is a necessary wall of self protection. The moment a woman starts developing genuine, deep feelings for you, an invisible shift happens inside her head. What started off as a fun, low pressure interaction suddenly morphs into a high stakes emotional investment. When the stakes go up, risk immediately enters the room. She starts realizing that if this connection goes sideways, it's actually going to hurt. She begins worrying about the power balance between you two. What if she cares significantly more than you do? What if she comes across as overly eager, clingy, or needy? What if she lets down her guards, opens up her heart, and ends up looking foolish when you walk away? These thoughts spin quietly beneath the surface, creating an overwhelming urge to slow things down. So instead of rushing forward to text you or secure your attention, she intentionally hits the pause button. She isn't doing this to play games with your head, nor is she doing it because she wants to lose you or push you out of her life. She is doing it to protect her own emotional sanity. She pulls back just enough to build a safety net for herself, so her feelings don't swallow her whole. When her name stops popping up on your screen, it isn't because she has erased you from her mind. In fact, you are likely on her mind more than ever. She isn't ignoring you, she is actively stepping back into the observer seat. In this deliberate pause, She is quietly watching how you handle the empty space. She is paying close attention to your baseline energy when things aren't constantly validated by her presence. She is observing whether you stay calm, confident, and grounded in who you are, or whether you immediately panic, flood her phone with desperate messages, and demand constant reassurance. To her, your reaction to her distance reveals far more about your actual character, emotional maturity, and internal strength than any smooth words or flashy gestures ever could. In her mind, opening her phone and sending that first text isn't just a simple, casual gesture. It is a moment of total surrender. To a woman navigating new emotions, reaching out first feels like handing over all her leverage and laying every single card face up on the table. When she initiates contact, she is making a direct, undeniable statement that she is thinking about you, missing you, and actively seeking your attention. In the fragile early stages of a relationship, where nothing is officially defined and everything feels uncertain, that level of exposure can feel downright terrifying. It strips away her protection and leaves her completely exposed to the possibility of being ignored, taken for granted, or seen as the one who is more invested. So, to guard herself against that potential power imbalance, she pulls her hands back and chooses to wait. This waiting period is never passive. It is a deliberate, highly observant pause where she gives you space to show who you really are. She sits back specifically to see what you choose to build inside that quiet vacuum. Will you flood that silence with needy, desperate, over the top energy, texting her repeatedly and demanding to know where you stand? Or will you fill that same space with calm, unshakable stability, showing that your world doesn't collapse just because a few days go by without a message? While you are sitting there operating on basic surface logic, thinking if she actually liked me, she would reach out, she is operating on a much deeper psychological frequency, thinking if he is truly a confident, grounded man, he won't lose his composure or spiral into panic the second I pull back. This dynamic forms the ultimate test of character that most men completely fail without ever realizing what hit them. You are not being measured or judged by how charming, smooth, or fun you are when she is active, warm, and giving you nonstop validation. Any guy can look confident and keep his cool when a woman is making it effortless for him. You are being evaluated entirely by how you respond when the warmth suddenly disappears and the room goes completely quiet. The silence becomes a high powered spotlight on your emotional baseline. It reveals whether your confidence is genuine and self sustained, or if it was just a fragile, temporary front that completely shatters the second she stops giving you constant reassurance. This back and forth behavior is not random, accidental, or a set of mind games meant to confuse you. It is a deeply rooted, learned instinct. The core rule governing her behavior is simple. The more genuine attraction and depth of feeling she develops for you, the more cautious and guarded she naturally becomes. When the potential for real emotional attachment enters the picture, her internal alarm system kicks in to keep her safe. This internal mechanism is precisely why her actions often feel completely contradictory and leave you scratching your head. On Monday, she might be warm, affectionate, deeply present, and engaging in effortless back and forth conversation that makes you feel on top of the world. But by Wednesday, she suddenly goes quiet, stepping back and putting up a wall of distance. That sudden, jarring shift is not a sudden drop in attraction or a sign that she has lost interest in you overnight. What you are witnessing is a process called emotional regulation. When she leans in, she allows herself to fully experience the warmth, excitement, and pull of the connection. But as those feelings grow stronger, the sensation of losing emotional control begins to scare her. To regain her equilibrium, she instinctively pulls back just enough to catch her breath and ground herself. She is constantly balancing two competing desires, wanting to feel close to you and needing to feel safe within herself. When those two priorities collide, her mind will always prioritize emotional safety over moving forward too quickly. She will deliberately choose restraint, space, and control over taking a risk that leaves her feeling overexposed. If sending a text or reaching out first makes her feel vulnerable, exposed, or uncertain, her instinct will choose self protection every single time, even if her interest in you is remarkably strong. This pivotal moment is precisely where most men completely destroy their position, ruin their appeal, and wipe out whatever genuine attraction was building. The fatal mistake happens because you are reacting entirely to the surface level rather than understanding the underlying psychology. You look at the phone, notice the sudden lack of messages, and instantly perceive that silence as an emergency problem that requires immediate fixing. Your instinct kicks into overdrive, screaming at you to bridge the gap and regain control before she slips away entirely. Driven by that spike of anxiety, you begin overreaching. You send double texts, carefully overthink every single word and punctuation mark you use, and construct artificial excuses just to get her name to pop back up on your screen. When that doesn't work, you take it a step further and try to force clarity, sending messages that subtly demand to know where her mind is at, or asking if something is wrong between you two. But while your entire mission is focused on securing the relationship and getting quick reassurance to ease your own discomfort, her focus is on something entirely different. She is actively evaluating your emotional stability. Every time you try to chase clarity, you inject heavy, suffocating pressure directly into the interaction. Every time you reach out of panic, you blast loud signals of needy, low value energy that tell her you cannot handle uncertainty without falling apart. You are operating from a place of fear, and a woman can sense that frantic energy instantly. The hard truth is that she is never looking for a perfect man who always knows the ideal thing to say. She is looking for an unshakable man, someone who remains secure, centered, and completely grounded in his own life, even when the communication cools down and the dynamic temporarily goes quiet. True, magnetic attraction does not grow through relentless, forced action. It deepens quietly in the spaces where you choose to do absolutely nothing. Most men fall into the trap of believing that connection is built purely by sending more messages, scheduling more dates, and constantly driving the interaction forward. But high value connection doesn't work like a sales script, where more output equals more results. The real blueprint of female attraction is forged through quiet observation. She is constantly watching how you hold your weight when the dynamic isn't being actively fed or validated by her effort. The exact moment you stop obsessively asking yourself, why isn't she texting me back? And shift your focus toward maintaining your own unshakable baseline, the entire power structure flips in your favor. When she pulls back to catch her breath and finds that you haven't panicked, double texted, or thrown a subtle emotional tantrum, her internal anxiety completely evaporates. Up until this point, she may have felt the heavy burden of managing the emotional climate, fearing that any gap in communication would cause you to collapse or react with needy pressure. Your total lack of panic proves to her that she doesn't have to carry the safety of the connection alone, because you are sturdy enough to stand on your own 2 feet, regardless of her immediate output. By choosing to remain completely calm, secure, and grounded inside that quiet space, you effectively give her emotional permission to lower her heavy protective guard. You demonstrate that you are not a man who needs constant validation to keep his heavy protective guard. You demonstrate that you are not a man who needs constant validation to keep his composure, nor are you going to punish her for needing a moment of space. That peaceful, unbothered presence creates a massive vacuum that naturally draws her back toward you. When she senses that her distance didn't shake your confidence or destroy your peace of mind, the risk of reaching out completely disappears, allowing her to step forward, drop the calculated restraint, and initiate contact with genuine ease.